And now let's introduce you to our guest, Ambassador Manjeev Puri, former senior diplomat. He joins us to throw light on the BRICS summit. Ambassador Puri, how does the Rio Declaration reflect India's long-standing demand for reforms of global institutions like the UN and IMF? Can we expect change?
Mark, thank you very much. I don't know about that, but I can say that it more than reflects India's demand for a reform of the multilateral system, the IMF, World Bank, that side of it, as well as the UN Security Council. And this is important because remember, within the BRICS is also China. On the UN side, they are a permanent member. There's Russia, they are a permanent member. So that's important. India and Brazil are together in the G4 setup.
Yes.
In the context of the IMF reform, I think this is particularly important because the declaration went on to also notice the interests of the countries of the South, not just a quota reform. Because, we should be quite clear, at the present the situation as things stand at the IMF and also at the World Bank, the United States has a kind of veto with more than about 16% of the quota. The Chinese are at about 5% along with the Japanese. And, they could be the first beneficiaries. But the idea of what the BRICS has said, or at least what they've noted, is that this should not be a reform without taking into account the interests of the global South. And that, I think, is particularly important because that's important for the way India would like to see the quota reform at the IMF and at the World Bank go forward.
Indeed, and the BRICS consensus also on a rules-based international order, which is grounded in multilateralism and respect for sovereignty. India, of course, desires this, but you did mention the two P5 countries that are members of BRICS, and many would argue that, they don't follow this quite well.
Absolutely, Mark. Look, international governance is a power game of nations, but we are making it there, So what can I say? The fact that we are a founding member of the BRICS, we were identified by Goldman Sachs more than 25 years back as one of the countries which would make an impact and change in the world. So, now many people would look and tell us and say to us, hey guys, you're making it there. What about the rest of us? And that's where the great challenge is, to be a part of and indeed carry along the global South as you mount your way to the global ideal. No doubt about that at all. But,
yes.
I must say, we are managing multi-alignment very well. We're managing to bridge this particular gap. At the same time, as you mentioned, we do have two permanent members of the Security Council in this grouping. We've been able to bridge the gap with them. The Brazilians, I'm sure, have also played their role very well in all of it. I think all in all, a very positive summit. Remember, Mark, this summit has taken place at the time of unprecedented global challenge. I'm not only talking about President Trump and the efforts on the trade front and on several other fronts to be very disruptive and to talk in terms of tariffs won't work, we won't agree with you, in terms of disrupting the transatlantic order, in terms of climate change, not wanting to follow, but also in terms of the Middle East, the Iran-Israel conflict, the issues regarding Gaza, the Ukraine-Russia. So in all of these, to get things going was, I think, particularly important. And the fact that the summit was held and it saw and brought forth the sort of situation and the demands of the global South and put it there very squarely in front of the world was, I think, very important without losing sight and without, losing the usual panache of diplomacy and doing things in a polite manner, but yet saying what had to be said in a correct manner, that we look for these reforms, we want these to happen, and we are all united in working towards multilateralism.
Sure.
You said something else which was very interesting. A rules-based order grounded in multilateralism.
Yes.
Now, Mark, it's important for our viewers and listeners to understand that there is a kind of difference in a sense that the word rules-based order is usually used by the Americans and the Western world. The South and countries of the South, etc., use the word international law. Here, we've tried to bridge the two. rules-based order based on multilateralism. Multilateralism actually results in international law. Some of it may be hard,
All
Chapter
right.
7 Security Council. Some of it may be best endeavor, General Assembly resolution. But they are a kind of international law and
Indeed.
not, ideas of the will.
So also the BRICS have endorsed responsible AI. India has always been emphasizing, on ethical tech governance and digital inclusion and all that. So how important is this?
Very important. Look, we are a country which, let me say very clearly, from the Y2K era, we've been one of the countries which has benefited a lot from the tech development, the IT development, at the same time contributed a lot. Look at the good people in Silicon Valley. So many of them come from our universities, etc., and we are so proud of all of them. And as AI develops, it's going to be the trained, good people who have Indian roots in them, Indian education with them, who will be propelling this forward. At the same time, we're not just talking about individuals making a great success. We're also saying we should look after societies, countries, the global south is very important. And so we are very clear in our mind that the entire set of developments, whether be AI, etc., cannot simply say, leave the South behind, leadership of those who've got it, and they will take things forward, take it or leave it. No, it has to be inclusive. It has to be one in which the last person is also included. He or she gets a chance to benefit from the benefits that accrue. It can't just be that, I invented it, I got it, and, it's my way or the highway.
Indeed.
Quite a difference from what you would hear from at least the transatlantic side, but we've been consistent on that. Prime Minister was there when the French hosted an AI summit. We've been speaking on it. The Europeans too, in their own way, because they're not really big-time leaders in the AI front, etc. They also talk in terms of responsibly taking forward IT, AI, etc. And so we go. The BRICS have also come strongly together. Remember, there's China there, which is, in a sense, a major leader in the area of AI.
Okay.
Glad that they've also signed on.
Ambassador Puri, the reference to terrorism and Pahalgam also at the Rio summit, how does it reflect India's efforts also to build a unified BRICS stance on counterterrorism?
Mark, without doubt, this is an achievement. Let me say this, not just the inclusion of the words Pahalgam and condemnation of terrorism. After all, there was the Security Council resolution after the attacks. But this little expression, including cross-border terrorism, I think that's something to be noted. And I am glad that the BRICS nations all agreed to go along. Indeed, I don't think they would have not gone along, but it's important that this important grouping of the world has endorsed this particular view. And, where it points, everybody knows. It's very crystal clear. That India was behind this is very clear. And so, in a sense, it's a signal which goes out to those who should be truly mindful and understand that terrorism, and especially cross-border terrorism, it has a price, and beware. The world is watching.
Ambassador Puri, how does the expansion of BRICS, with Indonesia joining and other partner countries also identified, align with India's vision of, we've been talking about it, the Global South, a stronger Global South coalition?
So, Mark, when we started off with BRICS, now some 15 odd years back, it was a grouping of the 4 countries which were sort of challenging the world, bringing in the perspectives of the Global South, but let me say the biggies of the Global South. We've enlarged that particular group and we've done it deliberately. I think that's a good sign. But, I would always caution and leave this one particular thing, that as you expand this group, and let's say we've included 4 or 5 countries at Kazan, we welcomed Indonesia, now we've identified some countries as partner countries. As you do that, remember the biggest challenge becomes the 100-odd other countries in the Global South who say, well, till yesterday you were in the same grouping, now you are in another one. How does it square up when you sit in the group of 77 and negotiate global texts on climate and so on? This is a challenge. It shows that you are an achieving country, that you are a country of interest, that you stand up. And even though you say, and you mean very well, that you will use your power and your abilities to stand for the others, the challenge is to be able to bridge this to the Global South And I think we've made major efforts on our part. We will continue to do that. That not only are we, in our own sense, as part of the emerging economies and therefore recognized globally in the BRICS, in the G20, etc., but our heart and our mind, and indeed we are strongly situated with you in the global south, and your views, etc., resonate with us. That's
Yes.
what we will champion.
And Prime Minister said that climate justice is not an option, it is a moral duty for India. So to what extent, has India shaped the discussion on issues like climate funding, climate finance and stuff like that?
Mark, I wasn't there, but Brazil is the home to all of this, the Rio Declaration. So let's accept that they would have done most of the spade work there. But what is very important for me is the following: that at a time when you have on their side of the Atlantic, in fact, attempts, in fact, of bringing about an erasure to climate change. The fact that at the UN's Conference on Financing for Development, the Americans moved the idea that you should drop the expression sustainable development goals, to that extent. And now when the countries of the BRICS come together and say, no, sustainability is important, an inclusive world is important, we underline climate change. India, of course, is a lead country. Since the Paris Agreement, we've taken our strong NDCs, we've done more than our bits, our achievements are more than our targets that we set for ourselves, and we are strongly committed to it domestically because we believe in it globally, but we also believe that we have a necessity to do it because of our own vulnerability. I have little doubt that India, Brazil have been strong collaborators on climate and sustainability, but I'm sure so has South Africa been strong. Indeed, now the world's focus is, what about China? I'm, of course, leaving out the United States, which says, hey, it doesn't exist, we won't do it. What can I say about that? But the Europeans, who've been old-time climate champions, now for a variety of national security reasons, etc., are trying to both dilute their own commitments. I'm not saying they are wavering from it. They are trying to dilute their commitment and rope in others, China, India being among the lead, who they want to bring on, in a sense, to take care of some of the portions which they are vacating, of course, without speaking of the fact that the biggest player in the game, the United States, simply says, I won't do anything.
Ambassador Puri, we're running short of time, but a last question, India's lead by example call. Now, India is also taking over the chairmanship of BRICS. So in what way is that lead by example going to influence BRICS strategies under India's leadership?
This is a very important question, Mark, and I'm so glad that, the leadership of BRICS comes back to India after several years. In 21, when we hosted the summit, it was all virtual. So what can one see? But remember, in 2016, when we hosted the BRICS summit in Goa, the new development bank was set up. This time around, a lot of conversation was around whether the BRICS may be able to do some kind of formalization, a secretariat. But look, then lots of other things happened. The attacks on Iran. Iran was a member just brought into the BRICS last year. Can you imagine the kind of situation? Could you be talking about this? No. But when it comes to us, would we take some of these institutional things forward? It depends. It depends. I don't know which way the government would think at that stage, but we were the host country when the new development bank was set up. We now need to think, do we try and formalize BRICS, especially as it's become a bigger entity than just 5 countries as it was? Very important. In various senses, the mantle of responsibility now comes on India, on our leadership, the Prime Minister, and this will be a very important, yet another place where a country which is going up ladder, which is a responsible country, that country takes on the leadership. We are not talking in terms of the way President Trump says anti-American. No, we're not looking at it. We're looking at BRICS being complementary to the global order, complementary maybe to the G7, but working within the G20, something which was also highlighted in the Rio Declaration. We want to be part of the world and taking humankind together. I think India has a specific, let me say, a global imperative in doing that. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is not our national motto just like that. We will live up.
We leave it there. Thank you very much, Ambassador Manjeev Puri. Thank you for putting into context Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Brazil for the BRICS summit.